And good Thursday morning, everybody. Mark Oppold as we take our first look at the grain and livestock trade. Still 15 minutes away from opening our trade here this morning. And by the way, another new high in the Dow. We'll keep an eye on that if we have a camera into New York through the day as well. Over 22,036 is the new number to watch here today. If we surpass that, it would be yet another high. Wow, how about that? But before we open this trade, we do have information in the grain trade here with our weekly export sales numbers. They come every Thursday. Let's go to our friends at Allendale. Rich Nelson joining me this morning. Take a look at these numbers, and even though they'll be turning to weather real quick here, it's good to look at numbers like this, Rich, to give us some new data.
Here, and as far as the numbers here today, neutral to slightly disappointing for some of these categories. As far as the corn, 475,000. This was the lowest of the marketing year as far as the old crop numbers by themselves. It still looks as though we'll probably meet USDA on old crop, but still a little low on the new crop numbers. Soybeans just a little over 600,000, in fact, here, and that was within the trade's expectation. Meal 145, looks like oil also 10,700 in this case, and wheat side 145 here in terms of the numbers there. Lowest in the marketing year, which started since June 1st. And as far as the side ones here, sorghum, we've got 222,000. Looks like cotton here with a net cancellation for the old crop, a little disappointing. 70,800, and wrapping up with the rice, 60,800 for those numbers here.
Yeah, marketing year low. We go back to corn and the soybeans there, back to those numbers. Marketing year low, maybe for Marlon and I were just talking about this, really not that outstanding, I guess you'd use that word, because we're at the end of the marketing year for corn. But a different story there on wheat. They just started here, in June, and they have a marketing year low already.
Certainly true here. And as far as these wheat numbers, pretty much since the start, we've been running at these anywhere from 300 to 700,000. So to see these numbers here at just over 145, definitely a clear disappointment as far as the wheat numbers by themselves.
And corn at 475, down sharply. In fact, I was looking at 80%, 83% lower when you look at the 4-week average. I always like to look longer term. Interesting that after China, our number one customer, Colombia coming in here. A couple of sales this past week for Colombia.
Sure, they have here, and these guys are our number 3 buyer here for this whole crop year. So it definitely is kind of backing up what we kind of talked about just a few days ago. This Colombia has become certainly a major buyer here that is seeing some prominence.
Yeah, and don't want to gloss over the fact that soybeans, you mentioned 600,900. These are metric tons for those listeners and viewers. 600,000, almost 601,000 metric tons. Pretty good number here, I would think, for early August.
And it certainly is here. And as far as these old crop bean sales, right now we've got $2.013 billion on the books. Just a hop, skip, and a jump away from USDA's 2.1 whole year expectation. So it looks like we're certainly going to beat the numbers as far as old crop soybean sales. The question is about new crop, which has the lowest booking, though, in the past 10 years, in fact.
Rich, I want to talk a little bit about a week from today, we get the crop report. And a lot of folks are going to be, and traders. Do you see a slower trade, lower volume trade here over the next 7 days, or weather forecast still going to trump in here and be the main card?
You probably have to suggest that weather will be the main factor for us right now, but no doubt leading into that report here with these numbers next Thursday, would expect this market to say, well, number one, the weather is an issue, but number two, we also have to have this understanding that we probably won't see the full realistic numbers as far as USDA's yield numbers on that report. It might not come till realistically till October. So maybe a little concern there.
Very good. Rich, we'll come back in a minute and talk about the livestock trade, and we have numbers, export numbers there, beef and pork. Rich Nelson from Allendale rejoining us after this. And we are 10 minutes away from opening our livestock trade here on a Thursday. Going to be very interesting to see what the follow-through is. Rich Nelson rejoining us. Rich, let's start there before we go to the export sales. Your thoughts on the way we closed this livestock complex yesterday, especially the pork complex?
especially on the pork side, good rebound there to speak of, no doubt, and can't argue at all with this nice little rebound on the charts. Also pointing out, we got some discussions about the cash hogs and cash pork, which we'll discuss here in just a moment. But as far as the futures end, good rebound. I can't say it's going to change the trend, though, but certainly good to have a one-day discussion here.
So you think the trend, I've got to read between the lines here, your trend is still lower in the hogs?
Yeah, it sure is, and I'm not going to make any bones about that. We did hit new lows for this downtrend as of, in fact, just yesterday for many of these back-month contracts before the rebound. So I would suspect most of this probably is going to be a short covering issue, which good for right now and good for the next couple of days. I don't know if it's going to change the story.
So that being said, what about producers that are tuning in here, listening in, wondering, well, okay, what does Rich think a strategy should be for that fourth quarter? Where those deferred contracts sit right now?
That's our biggest question. And as far as the break-even side, we're sitting at 61. It's going to transfer up to maybe about $63 per hundredweight by December. So we are looking at a net loss right now for the December contract as far as hog production. Would suggest maybe a small rebound to 62 and work on some sales at that point.
By the way, as long as we're talking about the pork complex here, we have the Iowa-Minnesota hog weights, I believe, and it does show, with the cooler weather and lower corn here of late, those weights not going down, actually increasing a little bit here from the past week. I find that very interesting.
Actually, a good point here. So this 0.2 pound increase we saw in the weekly weight numbers, it's actually not too far out of balance because we do have this normal weight seasonal low that comes in for the first week or two of August or the last week of July. So we are in the time frame for weights to start the transition also and move from what's a good piece of news to maybe a slightly negative piece of news here in the coming weeks.
All right, let's take a look at those export sales here before we have to say goodbye to you. And looking at the beef and pork exports, beef down 18% over the 4-week average. Pork, though, was up over 30% when you look at the longer-term 4-week average. Talk about those numbers from this morning.
This 11,400 number from beef side, it does fit within the range relatively the past few weeks. As you mentioned here, maybe a little disappointing compared with just the past 4-week average. One thing we're happy about on the beef side, it's 10% over last year, so good to see there. Pork numbers, 17,800, also would suggest a comparison against last year is good. So that's 22% over last year. So on both the beef and pork side, maybe a little better once you kind of dig into the numbers and do a comparison on this side here.
And I was looking at the commentary that comes along that USDA sends with this. When you look at the beef side, South Korea, our #1 customer, not surprised there. Canada came in at #2 here this past week. You don't see Canada showing up as the #2 customer very often.
No, that's exactly right here. And as far as the overall viewpoint on these on this trade with the U.S. and Canada and Mexico, these numbers for the most part are doing okay for right now. Would suggest certainly on the beef side maybe need a few more weeks of good gains before we can say we're going to be great. But certainly for right now we're doing okay on both our NAFTA trade partners.
Very good, Rich. Thanks for all your time as well as we have every morning get us started here. I know this is a busy morning at Allendale, but we appreciate the thoughts, and we'll be back with you tomorrow morning to see what we do at the end of the week.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. Rich Nelson from Allendale joining us, and he'll be here tomorrow at the same time looking at the grain and livestock trade prior to the open. And Janet, we are 6 minutes away from opening the trade, and see if we have a brand new high in the Dow. We'll be following that as well.
All right. Thank you very much,
Sure,
Mark.
you bet.
Appreciate it.